All right, I think we'll get going. Um, Hello, everyone. Good morning. Thank you so much for spending your lunch break or lunchtime on a Friday with us. I'm Naomi Grunditz. If you don't know me, I work for Councilwoman Amanda Sandoval as one of her aides in her office. I have a focus on land use and planning. I have my master's in planning from CU Denver. And so this is a monthly series we try to do every last Friday of the month where we invite planners, or related fields, agencies, city workers to come and talk to the neighborhoods about a particular topic. And today's topic is parks planning. In the past, we've had everybody from Denver Water to the actual planning department talking about neighborhood planning. We've had focused sessions on just accessory dwelling units. And if anybody has a request for something that they would like to learn more about and just connect in a nice informal Friday setting with city staff you don't normally get to talk with, please send a suggestion. This really is meant to be a resource for the community, and we're always looking for new topics and people to invite. So this is going to be about an hour. If we kind of run short of Q&A, we can end earlier than that. And as I said, it's really meant to be very informal. And feel free to put questions, comments in the chat. The kind of run of show today is going to be, we're going to have our wonderful parks people do a little overview presentation. And then we're going to leave the rest of the time up for questions and answers, because that's really what we're here for. So as you put questions in the chat during the presentation, we'll hold the discussion until after. But if you have anything that you would need to be clarified as the presentation is going, I will keep my eye on it. And so if there's a term, for example, that you would like someone to explain a little bit more, it's just about the presentation itself, feel free to go do that, and I will bring it up and make sure that we acknowledge that. I am also monitoring Facebook. So if anybody is watching on Facebook Live, you can also put questions in the chat there. And then at the end, since we're a nice intimate group today, we'll stop screen share, turn your cameras on, feel free to use the raise hand function, or just unmute yourself and say, hey, I've got a question. And we'll have as much of a roundtable as we can do in this virtual setting. So with that, I would like to introduce our wonderful representatives from the Parks and Recreation Department. We've got Kathleen, Owen, and Anna Claudia. And we're so lucky to have 3 staff members with us today. We really thank them for their time and engaging with constituents. So I will turn it over to them.
Great, thanks, Naomi. Really appreciate it. I think just personally, this is a really cool sort of civic feature that you do every month. I love it. I'm Owen Wells. I'm our district planning supervisor with our planning design construction team. And I'm here with my boss, Kathy, and my colleague, Anna Claudia. I'll let them introduce themselves in a second. I oversee a small team, about 5 planners that sort of cover the city geographically. And you'll see we have a pretty varied portfolio. And I'm also a District 1 resident. So I'm super happy to be here today talking to my neighbors. Anna Claudia, you want to say hi?
Hi, everyone. My name is Anna Claudia. I am your West Parks planner. I am geographically assigned to the west side of the city. And one of the things that I do, that I love to do the most, is talk to the community to bring the community voice to our internal processes.
Kathy?
Hi, I'm Kathleen Levesque, Assistant Director of Parks Planning. And in our presentation today, you'll be hearing a little bit more about all of the things that our team does.
Great, thank you. So we'll do our best to try to keep this short. I think we've got about 15 minutes. And I think what I'm going to try to do is just give an overview of our department and then sort of show you where our little parks planning team fits in and how we support our agency mission. I also want to talk a bit about our capital planning process, which is really the primary mechanism where we identify and prioritize and fund neighborhood park projects that are probably of interest to constituents. And then I thought there was our last topic, we could give just a little overview of how a typical parks project unfolds. So there's a couple discrete phases and give you a sense of the time frame that typically occurs there. Okay, so just this is our division, this is our department mission statement. Obviously, Denver has an incredible parks legacy, and it defines many of our neighborhoods. Probably half our neighborhoods are named after a core park that's in that feature. And it's our job overall to be good caretakers and stewards of those resources to ensure that the system can function for Denverites for generations to come, and that it can be responsive to changing conditions, whether it's a different population dynamics, different climate dynamics, or just different needs that are becoming evident. Whoops, on the screen. And just to give you a sense of the breadth, everyone hopefully has their favorite neighborhood park, but there's quite a lot to it. We've got over 250 parks just in the Denver city limits. That's 6,000 acres to be managed just in town. We've got another 14,000 in the mountain parks. And you can see that it's quite a diverse and varied system. We have 13 dog parks. We have 300 athletic fields. We have bison herd, which is unique in America. They have 2 of those. Millions of visitors annually. Tons of trees, both on the street frontage as well as in our parks. Hundreds of miles of trails and pathways. So just to give a little sense of the whole different types of features and amenities that fall within our purview. And then we can't do a parks meeting without talking about game plan. So about 2 years ago, our department finished up a really big strategic planning effort, and it resulted in this game plan document, which is available on the website. And if for anyone who's really a parks obsessive, you can get some good insight into how we think about our system and how we think about our organization. And it truly is how we ground all our decision making, whether it's on an operations side, whether it's recreational programming, whether it's about capital planning, when even just in how we organize ourselves to do our work. So super important document for us. It is our North Star. There's hundreds of recommendations in there, but they're all generally organized around 4 big pillars, which you see on the right side of the screen right here. Every drop is just a reflection of the suite of strategies that we want to employ to make sure that we have an environmentally sustainable system, and a system that can, that makes sense in Denver's climate. The every person pillar is really the driver between our equity agenda, which you'll hear a little bit more later. How we make investments, how do we ensure that every resident is having a fair access to the wide array of recreational opportunities we offer. Every dollar is really focused on our financial sustainability. Again, we need to be environmentally sustainable, but we want to make sure we have a system that we can maintain and that is funded, and we understand what those obligations are, again, so that the system can grow and adapt in perpetuity. And then finally, uniquely Denver. We want to make sure that we are building and constructing a system that is reflective of our local culture, is reflective of our local climate, and reflective of our local needs. We have a lot of really cool parks today, and that they really help shape what makes Denver a special place. We want to make sure that when we deliver new ones, that it's sustaining and fulfilling that legacy, which we have been left, which is great. Okay, so I'm sure people see folks out in the parks every day, but we are a pretty big organization in planning, design, construction. It's just one little piece of it. I'm not going to go into great detail in this slide, but it just shows that we have a couple different large pieces of our organization. It involves lots of field staff, whether it's recreational programmers, whether it's our maintenance and operations folks that you see maintaining the parks every day. We have folks in foresters, we have people that run golf courses. We have our rangers who have a law enforcement function. So it's one of the really unique things about being a planner for parks departments. So I'll pitch that to anyone who's young and looking for a career, is that since we are an operational agency, it's very different from it's kind of typical city planning department. So it's very fun to get to work with all these different types of folks and make sure that our efforts are supporting them in the field and in their programming offices, so that we are able to support the system that delivers services every day of the year. So here we are in the Parks Division. Whoops. And then Parks Planning, Design, and Construction is the team that Kathy and Anna Claudia and I are part of. Our house is split in 2. So we have planners, which is our group. We also have a bunch of design and construction colleagues who are focused on actually implementing construction projects. So a very big element of our work as the PD&C division is planning and executing parks construction projects. At any one time, we might have 150 of them going. We have an annual capital budget of about $50 million that we use both to rehabilitate or reinvest in park assets or entire parks that are reaching the end of their useful lifespan, as well as to grow our system. Obviously, Denver has been growing in a tremendous rate, and we want to make sure we're still delivering quality services that people have come to expect. So that money is both used to sort of maintain and to expand our system. When you sort of look at the system as a whole, just again to give people a sense of scale, we have a system that's sort of valued at around $1 billion just in terms of the assets, physical assets that exist in the park system. So that's quite a big charge, but it's not all that we do as planners and design and construction folks. And so our very small planning team, just the planning side of the house, does quite a bit of other work that sets the stage for a lot of those capital projects, or that involves coordination with our sister agencies. And here's just kind of the big buckets. If we get a new piece of property in the system, we have a blank slate. We need to work with the community to imagine what that space should be and what that character of that park would be. That's sort of our master planning and master planning efforts. System-wide planning is if there's a large, particular theme of interest, and you'll hear about our outdoor adventure plan at the end of this, and encourage you to come to those meetings. But sometimes we are thinking about specific assets or themes and how do we strategically deliver this across the system. Thanks to voters, we have a sustainable funding plan for acquisition. A few years back, what we call the legacy fund, at that point it was a ballot 2A measure in the previous go around, supports a sales tax increase that is dedicated to funding. And we are moving now aggressively to expand our properties. We have a resiliency team that kind of works on that every drop pillar to make sure that we're adapting and evolving to an environmentally sustainable system. The capital planning process, Kathy's going to talk to you about shortly. Again, that's I think important to day-to-day matters for folks, because that's the mechanism for how we prioritize and identify and deliver those construction projects. We do quite a bit of policy development on a variety of issues, and we're also involved with our sister agencies when it comes to reviewing large developments, just to make sure that a park's perspective and open space needs are being addressed as the city develops. And we also work with on public sector efforts. I know the Near Northwest plan is happening now. Anna Claudia is engaged in that effort with our CPD colleagues to ensure that quality of life chapter, that we're drilling in and being able to deliver our parks perspective, but to hear from the community as well about what's important in those 6 neighborhoods. Let me get one more. And I'm actually going to turn it over to Kathy to go on to our next little section about the CIP process.
Thanks, Owen. So as Owen mentioned, a big component of our team's work is capital planning and programming. And so each year we do capital improvement planning. So capital improvements are what we would call any of the big amenities that you might see in a park: playgrounds, courts, walks. Any of those improvements need to get capital funding. And so each year we really work on that year round, but it culminates in the spring when we really start planning and making recommendations for next year's capital budget. And so we have a very strong equity focus and also a data-driven lens that we apply to this process so that we can identify high priority projects for future funding next year, but then we also track on a 3 to 5 year horizon. As you might imagine, with over 200 parks, we have many more capital needs than we can fund in any given year. So if we know something is a high priority and we're not able to fund it next year, we track opportunities to fund it over the next few years. The graphic on this slide shows the layers of analysis our planners like Anna Claudia use to help prioritize projects. All year, we take requests that we receive from the public, from City Council, PRAB members, as well as our staff who are out in the parks working in them every day to identify, what are the capital requests out there. And then we apply these different layers of analysis to really help prioritize what we might recommend for funding in a future year. So we have an equity index that we look at, which looks at all the neighborhoods across the city and helps us understand which neighborhoods are most equitably served by parks and which are most in need of future parks investment. We also have an integrated approach, which is an opportunity to bundle projects in one park or one location so that in one project we can do more. So that might be an opportunity where we know we need to improve a playground, but also the walks that lead to the playground need to be upgraded. This integrated approach also gives us an opportunity to tie into approved plan recommendations, maybe that are coming out of small area plans or neighborhood planning initiatives, and incorporate those into our capital work. We also have conditions assessment data for most of our different assets like playgrounds and courts so that we can understand which are in the worst shape and are most in need of upgrade. And then also we look for opportunities to leverage partnerships and grants and help make our dollars go that much farther. Next slide, please. This is our equity index that I had mentioned. And as you can see, it has all of the neighborhoods across the city. And we have 8 different factors that we look at to try and determine the equity score for each neighborhood. We have 5 socioeconomic factors and then 3 parks related factors, which you can see bulleted out on the map. And the neighborhoods that are in the darkest green are most in need of equitable parks investment. And the neighborhoods in the lightest shades of green are already currently fairly well served from an equitable standpoint. Next slide, please. And then in a nutshell, this graphic shows our annual capital planning process. So starting early in the year, January, February, we really start gathering all of the data that we have. As I mentioned, our planners are collecting requests they receive all year. They're really making sure that they have all of those. They host additional meetings with council members as well as PRAB members to help make sure that we're capturing all of the priorities out there. And then as we move a little later into the spring, the planners really dive into data analysis and recommendations development, where they're taking those top priorities and filtering them through those layers of analysis that I had mentioned to really come up with the top recommendations for funding next year. And then as we move into April and May, we start to take that recommended project list and also share it with our Parks and Rec Advisory Board. So something to keep an eye out for is typically at the May PRAB meeting, we present our budget recommendations to PRAB. And then by June, we have a final capital plan that gets submitted to our Department of Finance. And then that goes on to the mayor's office and ultimately to City Council for approval. And then also during that time in the second half of the year, our planners are back to collecting recommendations that they receive, the requests they receive, so that we can start doing this process all over again the following year. Next slide, please. And here I'll hand it off to Ana Claudia.
Thank you, Kathy, for the awesome overview of our CIP funding process. I do get a lot of questions about that, so I'm glad that we are able to share our process. So we are typical parks project stages. Once the project gets funded, we do enter in the next phase of our parks project and vary by our procurement, concept design, construction documents, and ultimate construction. There is community engagement related to all these phases. The most active community engagement is what leads to a project to get funded, and also the concept design. The later phases is as project enters in construction, and in the construction phases, we have key engagement opportunities to hone in the design evolution of a project, and also to keep our city council and our communities updated on what is going on the construction. Sometimes, we just want to send a quick reminder that we are about to kick off construction, or we're about to open a park. Next slide, please. So here is, once we have a project funded, and we go here in a little bit more detail what happens on these phases, we do rely on our consultant team to support us with the expertise to really deliver like awesome designs and quality parks. We always conduct community outreach and engagement. This is a critical part of our park development project. On the concept phase, it's where we seek a lot of feedback from the community, and that's when the community really gets the chance to influence the amenities, the programming, and all the things that are important for the community. We hear very carefully, and we incorporate as possible in the design of the park. And then the next phase, we plan the construction documents, permits, and we build it. And the key thing to understand here is the timing that takes us. By the point that the project is funded, is officially funded, and we get our procurement phase and hire consultant to community engagement, which is a very critical part, and to get the documents necessary to actually build it is 2 to 3 years that per project, depending on the scale and the scope of the project. Next slide, please. And then we get to the point that we really get to celebrate with our community when we all get to open up a park and then really unveil to the community. We lift off the construction fence and it's open to the public to enjoy, and the families and the kids and all the things that the park has to offer. Is a very happy day for all of us because it's a lot of work to get to this point, and then we're always very happy to do so. But our work is not done once we open a park, and then comes to a never-ending stewardship of maintaining our parks. We work very closely with our maintenance team to build parks that we can sustain and maintain to a high level. And then we get to maintain and then really keep this amenity open for the communities. Next slide, please. And here's just a little bit of a visual for us to understand the breadth of our the typology of parks and the work that we do. The parks here varies from the mountains to neighborhood communities to our regional parks, our athletic fields, and also we have our master planning initiatives that are very important work for us because it really guides our legacy and how we invest and think about our system and citywide. Next slide, please. And here's a quick plug-in for our Outdoor Adventure Master Plan. As Owen mentioned earlier, this is a unique master plan citywide initiative that we are working on right now. This Outdoor Adventure Alternative Sports Master Plan, we identify non-traditional outdoor recreation needs and trends and best practice, and how our department, DPR, can better leverage our current assets. And then we also working to identify new opportunities to really inform our system, how our system is going to evolve in the next 20 years. So it's highly focused on equity, and the planning process is an ongoing process right now. Please come in to the upcoming public meeting. We would like to hear from you, and we appreciate you coming to those. And with that, I want to say thank you very much. And this is the end of our presentation.
Awesome. Thank you so much to all three of you. So we have got a whole bunch of questions. We've got some questions on Facebook. We've got some questions in the chat here. And so I will say, so starting out, and maybe this is a little bit for you, Ana Claudia. I know we have a lot of people from Sloan's Lake here. And I know we have some questions about Sloan's Lake specifically, about some specific amenities. And I think you mentioned there's actually going to be a meeting coming up, if you want to plug that.
Yeah, so and thank you again for Councilwoman Sandoval to request that of us, because we get so many answers specifically about Sloan's Lake. We actually heard this request, and then we are implementing a meeting next week, February 2nd. We're gonna dive in details about all things considered Sloan's Lake, give a quick update about the playground project, and answer any questions about the park. And I'll recommend residents here connecting to your RNO representative and getting those questions plugged in so we can add to the list of questions that we have to answer in the meeting.
Awesome, thank you. And on that note, just before I go on to the next question, I did want to ask one of you maybe to elaborate a little bit about, so I know some people on this call here I recognize, and you totally know what registered neighborhood organizations are, but for someone who might not be, what is kind of the relationship between a registered neighborhood organization and, say, for example, you have a great idea or you see something that you'd like fixed, or an idea or question about a park. What's the best way to communicate that to you, to the Parks Department? And I mean, even for us, like, we can help improve that process too. Like, is it more helpful to connect to your RNO and the RNO's, registered neighborhood organizations, come up with kind of a consolidated list? Or like, what would be your advice for best practices for people to be most effectively communicating their ideas and needs for the parks?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a very good question. So if anything that the residents see that needs to be fixed, we recommend contacting us to the 301 system. This system is important because is a data-driven system, so help us to track the increase that we receive, they're maintenance related, and also feeds into a data analysis that we do for our CIP planning too. So that's why it's very important to contact. We do get, trust me, you plug it in, your request on 311, we do receive it. It gets routed to where it needs to go. And then if something that Parks Planning can answer, we will receive your request and we will be promptly answering those. If you have ideas of program or new amenities, you can always contact me. I'm always available to chat and talk to residents about community and community in general about your parks ideas and project requests. It enters our CIP planning process, as Kathy mentioned. We do track those ideas and requests. It enters our analysis and our process. And but it is noted, it is recorded. And also, if you feel comfortable, also engage with RNO. I think that RNO, the registered neighborhood organizations, are huge resources. It is a forum that it's meant to foster community and conversations. And we work really hard to connect with those groups, and we're always available to chat with them. So it's my answer to that question is like, however you feel comfortable. If you want to talk to us directly, we are available and open to chat. And if you prefer to connect through your RNO, we also will hear from RNOs.
Awesome, thank you. So I will try to flip between questions that are asked in the chat and people who want to talk live and kind of mix up some of the topics. So let's quickly go to Phil. You raised your hand. Feel free to unmute yourself.
Thanks. I think Mark beat me to the punch. He's asking about noise mitigation, probably site and noise mitigation of I-70 at Rocky Mountain Lake Park. First off, thank you for all of the amazing improvements that I think are in the works right now for Rocky Mountain Lake. I ride my bike by on the way to work every day and I see the progress. So we're very excited to see that come to a conclusion. So yeah, my question was related to what Mark's getting at, is that the proximity of I-70 to users of Rocky Mountain Lake Park and Berkeley Lake Park, it's very loud. Just curious if any thought has been put into the idea of a noise mitigation barrier, either a higher berm or a better berm, or a noise mitigation barrier similar to what's being built to mitigate noise in the neighborhoods in this area. I assume this is probably in CDOT's purview, but just curious to get the Parks Department's perspective on that.
I'm happy to take that one. We have received a few inquiries from the public and then also from the council office, asking about opportunities for a berm to help, kind of raise that up and help mitigate noise and sound. It's something that actually is pretty complicated. The existing berm that's there does have existing vegetation on it that's been established, along with irrigation that goes to it and the paths. So the challenge of raising the berm then also it kind of creates a domino effect then of having pretty major impacts to the vegetation, the irrigation and the paths that are there, and then also potentially could have impacts to the lake itself. So it is something that we know is important to the community. We've definitely heard the request, but it is quite likely going to be something that's extremely expensive and would also need quite a bit of study in terms of any kind of lake impact, and then also the partners, like you had mentioned, CDOT, and then also Mile High Flood District. So it is something that we know about, but it is something that is probably a very long-term item to work on that will require a lot of funding and partner coordination.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kathleen. All right, I'm going to go to a chat question from Ray and or Pat DeFay. So I know you guys have a couple of different questions, and maybe, I don't know, Claudia or someone, I can ask some of these live, and then if you want to respond to them in the chat, you're welcome to go in there and do that too. So let's see, Sloan's Lake Park, North Side, Pelican Bridge has been closed for about 4 years. When will it be open? What's going on with that? And again, maybe some of these questions will be, there is going to be this focus meeting on Sloan's Lake. So I would urge you, if there are specific questions about Sloan's Lake, definitely go to that meeting. Because I'm sure if you have this question, probably other Sloan's Lake neighbors also have this question and would like to hear that there.
Yeah, this question is on my queue to answer on the upcoming meeting, but I can give a quick high-level answer to that. Is that we known about the Pelican, the fountain itself. There's parts that is really tricky for us to replace, and right now we are we are looking into what is the options, or either we're able to fix it, which we don't know that yet, or we're able to replace the whole fountain, the whole statue. One of the things that it is tricky for us, we still need to work through, is it seems to be a iconic statue for the neighborhood, and then we yet to determine, you know, if the community is really attached to it, can we revision a different statue or not? But the more details of the work that is ongoing on the bridge, and some of the things that we're able to find out, I will clarify on the specific Sloan's Lake meeting next week.
Awesome, thank you. All right, we'll go to a live question. Alejandra, feel free.
Hi, everybody. Thank you. Thank you for organizing all of these. I have a couple of comments, questions related to parks. The first one is about dog parks. I have been part of a volunteer group at the Berkeley Lake Dog Park that's been working there for years, doing a lot of work, many hours of volunteering, providing water, bags, snow removal services, I mean, all kinds of different things. And I just wonder how much the Parks Department is thinking about its role in providing these amenities, these public services. As you know, we continue to grow, and dogs continue to be a big thing here in Denver, and also the city talks about itself being a dog-friendly city. And I know that many other dog parks don't have these amenities because they don't have the committed volunteers that we do at Berkeley Lake. So what are the plans around dog parks in the city? And then the second question is about safer routes to parks, right? We have programs for safer routes to schools that don't work very well, but they're there by name. And then we have, I'm wondering if the park sees itself also as playing a role in creating safer routes to parks. Sometimes we have parks that are less than a mile away, or that are the only park near somewhere, like, for example, Rocky Mountain Lake Park, right? People who are coming north of I-70 trying to access the park, it is not a pleasant or safe experience. And also the new Inspiration Dog Park Playground, Inspiration Park Playground, who gets to access that park where it's so sort of secluded from really some sustainable travel options. So that was my second and very long question. Thank you.
Oh, those are really good questions. And we knew, I was like, be prepared to answer questions about dogs and dog parks, because we do really hear that, both in terms of maintenance and then people wanting more dog parks. And it's a very interesting, complicated scenario, more so than it may appear. So yeah, take it away, guys.
Well, first of all, I want to say thank you, Alejandro, so much for all your volunteer work and all the effort that you and your neighbors put into helping us keeping up with Berkeley Dog Park. We cannot thank you enough, and it's very my heartfelt thank you to you and your neighbors. You know, we appreciate you and all of you actually. So
if I may interrupt you, there's people like, you know, I haven't lately been able to put as much time, but there are some people that truly deserve, I don't know, a plaque or you know, a big check or something. Like, I would love for the city to do something for them, and I'd be happy to contact you directly so that they can feel appreciated.
Yeah, so a couple of things for maintenance related operations in our dog parks. We do not provide the bags. We do provide the containers, and we solicit that the dog owners bring their own bags and help, you know, pick up after their pet. We also, because, you know, we do have 4 seasons, we do have to shut down our water. If the dog parks in general has a fountain or has water accessibility, we have to shut down for the winter. We do winterize those, and we do regular maintenance, seasonal maintenance on the materiality of the grounds of the dog park. It's something that we do in a yearly basis. You know, there is an annual maintenance for that, and we do keep that in check because it's important for the health of the dogs, and you know, and then also to be a viable place for you to bring your dogs to recreate. As far as new dog parks, it's something that we heard a lot from our communities, and we are constantly thinking about it and working on it. We do have a technical update for a citywide dog master plan. And if you have not seen this document, I recommend you to read it. It's posted on our website, but I also, Naomi, maybe we can facilitate sharing that link to this group. And there you can see, if we go in really detail on our criteria of establishing new dog parks within a system. It is critical also to understand that this is a new amenity. When we do create new parks, it enters our CIP process that Kathy described so well. It enters the prioritization process. As you know, there is more priorities and needs that we can fund. So it's important for you guys to understand. We hear the comments and the requests, but we also are true to a process, and then we try to follow our own process in the most equitable way as possible. And I also gonna take the safe routes to park question, because in my previous life, I was actually the safe routes to school coordinator for the city. And I have a lot of experience in that. When now as a park planner, I do understand the need of that, you know, both critical amenities for our societies, is schools and parks. You know, this seems to be, you know, the package that really moves people to those two critical needs that we have. But also understand that this is not a parks alone mission. We do have to coordinate and partner with other agencies within our city. Our DOTI agency, the Department of Transportation and Infrastructure, are our sister agency that has the jurisdiction over our roads. And the best way that we can influence safe routes to park is actually to be involved on another sister agent process, the Neighborhood Planning Initiative that's led by Community Planning Development. We sit on those meetings. We are very diligent being an active participant of these processes, because we can bring in our parks perspective, safety, and ability to connect the best way possible to connect people going to our parks and amenities is a critical aspect of that work, and we're part of it, but we also cannot do alone. We need you to be also active, be active in this process and really bringing those important priorities and needs. Be vocal about to your DOTI planners and the DOTI initiatives. Also be active on CPD, because those lay the foundation how safety we can implement safe routes to school and safe routes to parks.
Thank you. And I'm going to follow up on that with a question that was just asked, because it is very related, but about sidewalks. And that is mostly DOTI. So sidewalks are an interesting topic in the city when they are next to private land. So like in front of my house, I'm technically responsible for fixing my sidewalk. But what about, so Philip asked, for example, the sidewalks along the boundaries of Willis Case Golf Course, kind of following along on the safe routes question of how we can actually access some of the parks that may have not had sidewalks along them yet. So whose responsibility is that? Where can people find more information about how those things are prioritized or have their voices heard?
Yeah, I'm happy to take that one because I also sit on those meetings. So it is a joint effort again. So there's two flavors of sidewalk work. There is one that DOTI is a program housed in DOTI, the Department of Transportation Infrastructure. They fund those projects, and is a top priority for the mayor too. So it's an initiative of mayor that the department implements. But we also are partners into the department, because when there is a sidewalk gap within a parkland or trail or any other park facilities, rec centers, or any other recreational amenity that we have, we also coordinate to prioritize, identify, and really contribute to the implementation of timing. Sometimes we are able to bundle projects. Is something that Kathy mentioned. There's an integrated approach here too. Sometimes we are able to flag, hey, we are doing this project in a park. We also identify there is a sidewalk gap, not just at the park side, at the parkland, but getting to the park. We know this is an important route to get to the park. Can we identify to prioritize this in your next segment of implementation? So we do coordinate with them, but it's a DOTI-led initiative. The only way that we lead sidewalk gaps if we are redoing the sidewalks within a park in an active project, and then that we lead and then we implement ourselves.
Great, thank you.
Naomi, could I follow up on that just really briefly?
Go ahead.
As it pertains to a sidewalk along the boundary of the Willis Case Golf Course, just so I'm clear, are there any like practical or political obstacles that would get in the way of putting a sidewalk there? Obviously, we don't have funding for sidewalks everywhere in the city and the wherewithal to do that, but are there any feasibility impediments to ever doing that?
It's something I haven't.
That segment of Sheridan is extremely dangerous for pedestrians.
A sidewalk along Willis Case isn't offhand. It's not something I've directly, looked into or been part of conversations about. It is something that we can share with our golf division. Golf is actually its own division within Parks and Recreation, and they're an enterprise fund. So they operate a little bit separately, but I can pass that along to them. I know in the past, some concerns have come up at other golf courses about encouraging walking along a golf course where there could be stray golf balls that could hit someone potentially. And that has come up as a potential concern. But I don't know if that's been evaluated directly at Willis Case. So if you'd like, if we can pass that request along to golf for their consideration.
Yeah, and as an update, because we also have been dealing with those requests, that is a Department of Transportation infrastructure project, and they are working on scope of work.
Super. So it's on the radar of planners at this point.
Oh yeah,
Awesome.
yeah.
I've got a 4-month-old boy, and we are very excited to use Inspiration Point Park safely
Yes.
in the future.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. So my timing is horrible here. We just had Frank Rowe on, who was with the Denver Park Trust, and he had to leave 2 minutes ago, but I did want to ask a question about the Denver Park Trust. How does that play into parks? How can people get involved in that? And what do they do? And do they have any projects that you know of in D1?
Well, Frank would definitely be the best person to speak to that, but I'll try and fill in a little bit. But the Denver Park Trust is a foundation partner for Denver Parks and Recreation. They were formed just a couple years ago, and in particular, I know Frank is very accessible and willing to reach out and talk with you about any projects or interests that you have. They have been doing fundraising for various park projects. I know they also have a very strong equity focus, and they have partnered with Denver Parks and Recreation on several different projects already. So they have been a great partner, and I would encourage you to reach out to Frank if you want to learn more.
Awesome, thanks. Yeah, so they can supplement some of the work that Parks does, and it's really awesome. All right, let's see. Thank you for all your questions. So we have a question from Pat and Ray about master plan for Rocky Mountain Lake Park. So they asked, when can a master plan be put in place? And maybe, kind of always taking it to a little bit of the next kind of level of what does it, does every park have a master plan? If they don't have one, how is that prioritized? And kind of how does that play into the planning process for parks?
Oh, Owen, did you? Okay. Not every park does have a master plan. Actually, the majority of our parks do not have master plans. But typically, when our department does identify a need for a master plan, it is often, if it's a scenario where it's a brand new park, kind of a blank slate, where there's nothing there, and we're working from scratch to figure out in conjunction with the community what kinds of amenities and features might be there. We also might do a master plan on an existing park if the park is no longer serving the community in the ideal way. It might be that the park is several decades old, really needs sort of a full update and replacement, and it's just not the robust and exciting place that community members want to go, and we really need to rethink it. It's not a matter of just updating amenities, but really rethinking how the park functions. And so that might be another scenario where we do a master plan, or if there's a lot of complexity. An example is in 2018, we completed the City Park Master Plan. And that's an example of a regional park that not only serves all of Denver, but visitors from all over the state and the country. We have cultural partners there with the zoo and the museum, different historic features, and we also knew that a lot of capital investment was needed. So we did a master plan working very closely with the community and the council offices, and now we're starting some of those improvements in City Park. So those are typical scenarios where we might identify that there is a need for a master plan. And then for Rocky Mountain Lake Park in particular, that is a request that we have received from a few different members of the public. So we know that that there is interest in Rocky Mountain Lake Park. It is an established park with the lake, with the play areas, with amenities that are already there. We're aware that some of those are in need of updates. And so it is something that I think it would be great to understand a little bit more about, is there a sense that the park isn't serving the community well, or is it a sense that that there's just a variety of amenities that need more upgrades to them?
Great, thank you. Oh, clarification question from Alan, which is a good clarification question. So when we were talking about 311 and also Pocket Gov, which is the online portal, that's a great place to submit kind of something needs to be fixed or there's an issue going on. What about requests? Is that the best way to get a request to Parks and Rec Department, or is there another venue that's maybe a little more effective?
And this, I assume, is a request for new amenities like a new playground or a new dog park.
Yeah, you can elaborate if you want, Alan. You can unmute yourself if you want.
Sorry, struggling. You think I would have figured out how to do the unmute button 2 years into this. Thank you so much for you guys for being here today. It's so great to hear this, and thank you for having us, Naomi. Yeah, so like specifically, for example, like Lakeshore Drive, everyone loves, or I should say the vast majority of the neighborhood loves the car-free streets that you guys have put in at Sloan's Lake. One request I've heard from some residents is maybe having some more robust barriers, not just on the street, but around the street, because drivers are tending to go around there. And we've seen some people, especially after Broncos game, fly down the streets with little kids on their bikes and things like that. So I was wondering if we wanted to put in a request like that, is 311 the best request for something smaller like that to go through?
I think your best bet is what you just did, which is talk to Anna Claudia. So that's, if you're most personable and front-facing person for like a park's amenity request, or something you're seeing and that you're some way you'd like to reimagine a park, you can talk to her directly. It's probably the most direct way to have that then registered in our collective thinking.
Yeah, that's definitely the very direct way to put in your request, because I report back the increase and we enter all requests into a database. So it is recorded and then it is, vetted through our internal processes. But, if there is a need that the community feel that, 311 is more comfortable, or talking to your city council or to your registered neighborhood RNO, all those are ways to connect to your needs and your ideas to us. It eventually gets to us, but if you want a direct route, just email me and or chat with me, and then we'll be able to keep chatting along on our how we are navigating the analysis and the feasibility of implementing your request.
Great, thank you so much. And have you dropped your email anywhere in here and chat or anything like that?
I was just going to ask if you could put your email in the chat. That'd be awesome.
Thank you.
And another question I think might be for Anna Claudia as well. If there are volunteers interested in organizing like a tree planting or something in Rocky Mountain Lake Park specifically, what would be the process for that?
So we do have a volunteer program. Tina is our volunteer coordinator superhero. I never seen a woman so efficient in coordinating people, and sometimes we get a group of 50 to hundreds, and she does her magic. So she is the keeper of what current projects are going on as far as cleanups or a specific targeting a need, tree planting, for example, a need. As far as Rocky Mountain, it is a active construction site because there's an active construction project. Typically, we suspend tree planting when we do have something significant happen in the park. If it is in an area of the park that is far enough from the construction site, we might consider, but it's something that we don't typically mix volunteer groups with our active construction sites. So I'll request the community that wanted to volunteer with us tree planting to I'm trying to find, here's my email, but I'm trying to connect Tina's email as well. So let me take a look at that. So connect with us, whether me or Tina, so we can plug you in what's active. Winter season, we don't do any planting, so it's a spring to summer activity. And she coordinates internally which projects are viable, and then she also coordinates with the community to get them signed up for those volunteer efforts. And I'm gonna plug in her email as well.
Perfect. Oh, Alejandro already put it in there. And I met Alejandro, that's who you coordinate with on volunteering and helping at the dog park, right? Great. Yeah, I put the link into the whole page about volunteer opportunities. There's actually a lot of stuff in there. I should check this out. And then Tina's email is also listed if you do some of the drop-down menus there. She is the person to go to. So we've got 3 minutes left. Does anybody, I don't see any more questions on Facebook. Anyone else want to chat? Feel free to just unmute yourself or raise your hand. Yep. Go ahead, Philip.
I have two quick hits. One is, are non-motorized personal watercraft currently allowed at Rocky Mountain Lake Park and Berkeley Lake Park, such as kayaks? Second question is sort of in the weeds, but I often jog past a native area called, I'm going to mess up the name, Camp Rollandet or Rollandette on the far, far northwest corner of Denver. It's currently gated off, and I'm not sure if it's open to the public. Are there plans to make that accessible?
I'll need to double check the timing, Philip, of the opening. If typically if a native area is enclosed, it's because there is a restoration project happening, and the fences are to allow. It's necessary to block access to allow the native plants to establish themselves. It does take some time for that to happen. And then if we allow traffic or accessibility, we might have to redo the restoration project again. So that's why you see that. So any of the native areas that you see, that is because there's an active project. So as far as when that's going to be open, I'll need to follow up back. You know, I don't know the timeline of that at the moment. Okay. And what was the other question?
Boating, yes, those are both hand rec boating accessible lakes.
Awesome, good to hear. Thank you.
All right, any last questions? Well, thank you so much, everybody. This was a really great question.
Oh. Naomi, may I interrupt? Actually, I did have a question. I'm sorry, it's a very brief one. Thank you, everyone, for organizing this. I really appreciate that. Regarding the current project, construction project that's going on at Rocky Mountain now, it was brought up in an excellent question regarding non-motorized use of the lake. Do you know if there will be any type of access that will be incorporated to help facilitate the launching of non-motorized vehicles? You know, there's day camps where they bring kids on canoes. It's so cool to watch them out at the lake all the time at Rocky Mountain. And I've heard their comments before that they wish that there was better accessibility, just something small to where they could launch and recover non-motorized vehicles. Can anyone comment on that, whether that's something that's on the radar and could be anticipated?
Yeah, I can definitely answer that. So we received a request through the Rocky Mountain active projects, the period that we received feedback from the community for that. We heard, and we also received some ideas of how the future access can be established. Unfortunately, at this moment, there is no peer or any other way to facilitate that right now. There is an active lake restoration project happening, and until that project is done, we can revisit some of the design ideas that we received throughout the active projects right now, and that also needs to enter our CIP process. It is a little bit costly to implement a robust access to the lake for that purpose. So something that we heard about it, but is a long-term goal, and the active lake restoration right now is a priority.
And I do think this is one of my CIP requests too. That's one of where I put in my stand-up paddleboard, and you come in off that little, there is a bit of a drop from the turnaround there, and it's not super clean. So I will double check, and I can double check. I think some of the restoration might actually smooth that out a little bit, but it's not like a pier, like the little kind of pier you see at Berkeley Lake, but something for future consideration.
Great, thank you. And I know we're going to go a little bit over, but I realize there's a very important aspect of Parks and Rec that was hinted at earlier, but I wanted to make sure we got on record to talk about, which was the Parks and Rec Advisory Board, PRAB. And so wondering if Owen or Kathleen or Anna Claudia could just super briefly, what is that? I didn't know it existed until I started working for the city, but it's pretty neat.
Sure. So we have a Parks and Recreation Advisory Board, also sometimes called PRAB, and they are a group of representatives from each of the different council districts. So each council person gets to nominate a PRAB representative to help represent their district on parks and recreation issues. And then there's also mayoral appointees as well. And so they are a board that our department, they have monthly meetings that our department attends and presents on different timely park topics, both in our urban park system, the mountain park system, kind of all manner of topics. And then they also look at we present our budget to them each year, as I had mentioned earlier. So in May, in particular, if you're interested in hearing about our capital plan proposals for 2023, we typically present to them in late spring on that. But your PRAB representative is also a great contact for any ideas and questions that you have. We check in with them as well. So coming up, as Anna Claudia is scheduling our capital briefings with Councilwoman Sandoval, we typically also invite the PRAB representative too. So they're another opportunity for you to just help share your ideas for our Parks and Recreation system.
Great. And they have a public comment period during those meetings, right? Yep.
Yes, they do.
Awesome. Oh, and I just have to point out, currently we're in a little bit of we don't have a PRAB representative right now. There's a little bit of a gap between our District 1. So how to get the Council on District Parks Advisory person more involved. So please reach out to Anna Claudia. She is your District 1 Parks. Oh, sorry, do you mean the PRAB member? Like I said, unfortunately, we're actually between PRAB members. But we will be working on that. And please do attend PRAB. I put the link in the chat as well. It's a really interesting just insight into what topics are going on in parks, and both discussions about kind of high level like policy and direction, and also really good updates. So that's a monthly thing that you can check out, and also give public comment. All right, thank you so much, everybody. And one last call too to hear about parks, sign up for our newsletter. I will also put the link in the chat here. We will definitely be putting things in there related to parks. And if anybody is on this call is interested in being the PRAB member, please do feel free to reach out to us. I'm going to put in District 1, the number 1, at denvergov.org. You can contact us that way, and we'd love to talk to you if you are interested in that role. All right, thank you so much for staying 6 minutes over. Really appreciate it. And super huge thanks to Owen, Kathleen, and Anna Claudia, and everybody else. Have a great rest of your day and enjoy your weekend. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks,
you,
everyone.
Thank you.